Hello and welcome to The Crux. I'm your host, Adrian Hill, and today I'm joined by someone who I've known for a little while through previous organizations, but he's done a lot of work throughout sales and partnerships. But I'm really excited to talk about today's topic. It is something that does hit close to home for me in sort of men's mental health and how to set up partnerships for success through men's mental health and really support the ecosystem of men at the moment. So, my guest, Paddy Boyd, has done a lot of work. He's currently working for an organization called Sonder, but also he does a lot of work outside of his corporate career with an organization called WNOW, which I know that we will touch on and talk through in a little bit more detail. So, Paddy, I'm extremely excited to have you on the show and welcome to the Crux.
Oh, thank you, Adrian, for having me. And it's a pleasure to kind of catch up. Obviously, we started, knowing each other a number of years ago when we were working together at another Australian startup called Go On, which was fun times back in the day. And obviously, really enjoyed, working with you through that period. And then obviously now with my role at Sonder, supporting organizations and their people when it comes to holistic well-being care. And we're doing a lot of things in that space, which, are close to my heart, as well as the work that I'm doing outside with WNOW, which is something that I think is a really important topic when we're supporting men's mental health, because it is a bit of a taboo topic. And I think we really need to support people in this space and make it something that people are proud to talk about and show that they are vulnerable.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. And as I said, I follow along with your journey through social media and obviously what you're doing through Sonder as well. But and it is something that resonates, and I'm sure we'll touch on it a little bit with myself a lot. Being ex-military myself and dealing with the challenges of mental health and adapting to new environments and living with the stresses of either trauma or trying to identify how to live a life that we're not accustomed to, or how do we adapt, I suppose, as men into an ever evolving landscape. So I love the work that you're doing. Obviously I've lost a few friends over the years to suicide on the back of their involvement in the military. But why don't we start with WNOW and walk me through a little bit about the WNOW program and what you're looking to achieve with that.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, WNOW itself was set up by two fellow Irishmen, Tadhg Kennelly, who came over to Ireland many years ago to play AFL for the Sydney Swans. He's one of the first
Premiership player
uh,
with the Swans.
indeed. So himself and Dave Eccles set up WNOW during COVID, actually back in kind of 2022, I think it was. And the reason why they set it up originally was around blokes need connection, and a lot of the time, certainly through COVID, men were stuck at home on their own, and they realized that a lot of individual men around Australia and the world were struggling when it came to opening up and being vulnerable and dropping their body armor. That's one of our kind of mantras that we talk about dropping your body armor, because typically what happens is men, when they leave their home, they put their body armor on and they don't want to show vulnerability. And what we're trying to do here is give men a safe space to allow them to drop their body armor, open up, and share things that they wouldn't typically share with their mates down the pub. We meet at 6 a.m. Every Wednesday morning in several different locations around Australia. So it can be at Bondi Beach, it could be at Inner West, it could be in Perth, it could be in Canberra. And we have a light bit of exercise. We have a dip in the ocean or the lake, depending. If you're in the west, then you wouldn't be doing that. But ultimately, the main emphasis of the charity is to build connection
Yeah.
and give people an opportunity to have those conversations, because I think there is, unfortunately, a lot of people suffering in silence, and we're giving people a platform and an opportunity to engage with that. And every session we kind of recognize, unfortunately, the 60 men every hour around the world we lose to suicide. We do our 60 push-ups at the end, to represent them. And we're really trying to impact 1 million men around the world. So it's really having that ripple effect of supporting people. And I've seen it firsthand, people who have come to the group and they've shared stories of what they're struggling with and how the group is giving them that opportunity to get up, come and share their stories and get that support and
Yeah.
become better husbands, partners, fathers, brothers, uncles, etc.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. It's amazing to see the work that is going into, I suppose, educating men around, the ability and the need to speak up and be vulnerable. And it's okay to express, disappointment or sadness at times, especially instead of bottling that up and letting it explode at a later stage. So I suppose, what are some of the unique challenges that you've probably come across, or that men face in prioritizing their mental health and overall well-being, I suppose, at work and also in their home life?
Yeah, I think, the kind of life of a man has changed so much over the last, 20 years. If I look back to when, say my father was my age, mental health wasn't a topic that was talked about. It was, and certainly it was something, people would say, oh, she'll be right type of mentality. But I think nowadays, because work and life are so interlinked together, people really need to look at themselves 24/7, not
Yeah.
just, at work or at home. It's, you're taking stresses from home to work and vice versa. So men especially, I think, have this kind of persona that they have to be, macho, and they have to kind of, always, that stiff upper lip and not show vulnerability traditionally. But I think in this day and age, I think it's actually a really positive trait that you do show vulnerability and you do drop your body armor and you do put your hand up for help. And
Yeah.
I personally, have struggled myself with anxiety and stress, over the years. And I think that the thing that really helped me was actually speaking up and sharing that with people, because I think, the old adage of, a problem shared is a problem halved, that is true when it comes to mental health. I think,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
suppressing that is we have the issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really great saying. A problem shared is a problem halved. I think if you can find a way to be able to open up and be vulnerable on your situation, then I think, you're spot on. We're typically taught as young men growing up in the 80s and the 90s that, you dust it off and you push forward. And there's a saying in the army that if you're having a tough time, you just, drink a glass of concrete so you can harden up. These are all the things that are sort of, ingrained in us as we're moving through life. And for me, it was a lot of those formative years being sort of 18 to 25, where I'm going through a lot of growth and a lot of change. And, especially in the army, they break you down and they rebuild you back up with your colleagues. But you're trained to be a killer. You're trained to, I suppose, shut off all the emotion that you're born with, and you're designed to go out and perform your duties and serve your country. So being able to have the ability to sort of step back into civilian life was always a challenge, because you're trained a certain way, and living in a civilian lifestyle is a lot different to a military lifestyle. You can't walk around with a rifle and protect yourself that way. So you have to be able to protect yourself emotionally through other avenues. And this is why I love the work that you're doing with WNOW, because it really shows men how to communicate and how to be vulnerable and how to, not lash out with, at certain situations, to be able to talk about it openly and honestly. And there's a whole stigma now, there's a whole shift that, being vulnerable and having the ability to open up and talk is a lot stronger than shutting it down. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, we have a circle of trust at the end of each session, where people have the ability to share, what's going on in their lives and what they're struggling with. And I'm not going to share particular situations, but what it does for me anyway, it certainly puts a lot of things in perspective as well. There's
Yeah.
a lot of challenges that people are going through on a day-to-day basis that, are heart-wrenching. There's people who aren't getting to see their kids, or they're going through, diseases, they've got cancer, they've got, other issues going on with their lives, but, they're still able to be positive. And I think at the end of the day, it helps me and helps everybody in the group to put things in perspective. And it's taught me also to, try to not let those things that typically would frustrate me, you know, I I'm trying to kind of push them to the side, and that kind of talks to what I do in my day-to-day job
Yeah.
in sales and partnerships. There's a lot of things that, the roller coaster of what we deal with, and you have to try and kind of, push away the things that you can't control and focus on what you can control. And like you said, Adrian, I think the bottom line is that, we want to be able to be good dads, we want to be good partners, we want to be good uncles, sons. So if we're able to try and to not let that stuff affect us mentally, then we can be more supportive and more caring to not only your family, but to your colleagues as well, and friends and society, and make us, better people altogether.
Yeah, absolutely. And would you say, with your experience that, men's or, mental health in general is on the rise collectively? Is it a byproduct of people having a larger forum to communicate through social media, et cetera, or, people are made aware of it? Or would you say that genuinely mental health appears to be on the rise, and we need to do more to be able to work with these people to help them adapt with the ever evolving, I suppose, the ever evolving, changing landscape of the world right now?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely on the rise, but it's probably coming from a place that didn't have a forum. I think, the silver lining potentially of something like COVID is that it gave mental health a seat at the table,
Yeah.
not only at board level, but, at the dining table, at home. I think previously, mental health, like you touched on, was something that was kind of talked about, but kind of a bit wishy-washy. Whereas now, I think, because it's got a seat at the table, both at home and at work, it's definitely getting that spotlights shone on it, and it's definitely on the rise, because you just look at the day-to-day pressures that individuals have to go with.
Yeah.
You look at the economic climate that we're dealing with. Not only is putting pressure on the household, but it's putting pressure on the business that you work in. They're looking to raise more money. They're trying to drive kind of investments. They're trying to drive sales. That ultimately feeds down and puts pressure on the whole organization, and that's why we're seeing and certainly in white collar organizations, a lot of burnout going on. But then on the flip side, then if we look at blue collar frontline workers, they're having to deal with customer aggression as an example, because that's on the rise. So regardless of the industry that you're involved in, it's definitely on the rise, and it's something that certainly needs the support, not only of organizations but of families as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Excellent. And I suppose, we can probably use that as a transition then, or a segue into Sonder and what Sonder is doing. And, I suppose moving into that corporate landscape of mental health and awareness. And you did touch on it. Like, it is really hard to shut down now from, especially because a lot of organizations, work from home. So how do you clearly define a start time, an end time, and then you move into your family, your family period at the end of the day? Because, unlike going to work Monday to Friday, 9 till 5, you had a clear clock off time. You hopped into you got in your car or your train or your bus and you head home, and there was no way you could shut off from your work. Whereas now there's not really a clear stop for work and personal life. So it's great to see organizations like Sonder, who are looking to work with organizations, I suppose, bring awareness to the sort of the landscape of the corporate landscape. So on that very long-winded question, I apologize, but on that, can you talk us through a little bit more around what Sonder is doing, and how they can benefit organizations and their workforce in the current state of play?
Yeah, no, great question. And I think, at the heart of what Sonder stands for and what it values for, one of our key values is empowering people to be at their best. And, to be at your best, you need to be both physically, spiritually, and mentally, at top of your game. And, these are all interlinked, and it's all very much around, your physical safety, your mental health, and, from that perspective, your everyday medical conditions as well. So these are all interlinked, and Sonder being, a technology-based well-being care platform, we're here to support organizations and the people, to be more proactive when it comes to supporting people's well-being. So traditionally, a lot of organizations will have tools and platforms in place, such as an EAP, as an example. That's an employee assistance program. Traditionally, that's access to a 1-800 number, which is quite reactive, we would say, and probably
Yep.
not the most engaging kind of form of interaction in the society we live in today. And I think the care landscape, is needing to get into the 21st century to be giving people the ability to access that level of support that we do here at Sonder 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So really, it's about empowering individuals to take control of their own well-being, giving them tools and resources to be more proactive, and ultimately, help them if there is a life wobble or an acute mental health issue, getting that support earlier so it doesn't turn into a bigger issue for organization. And that, I think, links into the work that we're doing in that psychosocial risk
Yep.
perspective as well, giving
Yeah.
people the ability to see what's happening with their business earlier.
Yeah, fantastic. And I suppose, investing in an organization like Sonder and investing in your people will create a longevity in the workforce. People will be more inclined to, there'll be less burnout. There'll be less, there'll be more engagement in their organization and the work they're doing because the organization has shown that it cares for its people and is willing to work with them. So I suppose beyond the traditional healthcare benefits that, most organizations provide now. Um, what creative and impactful programs does Sonda look to do, or initiatives that HR leaders globally can implement to promote a more of a holistic well-being for their staff, in particular, sort of men dealing with this men's mental health?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it comes down to that early intervention piece as well. So, getting people support or help earlier in the journey, and allowing that individual then to get back to healthy mental state quicker. So then ultimately then reduces the likelihood of having to be off work for longer, workers' compensations claims and stuff like that. But the areas that we really focus on, for example, is building trust with our members or our customers, staff members early. So, and what I mean by building trust is that there is a bit of a stigma of mental health that people don't like to ask for help. So then they're not going to phone the 1-800 number, as an example. So as an organization, through our technology, we build trust, for example, through our safety notifications. So we will send out, push notifications to our members to advise them of, say, severe weather warning if there's, a cyclone coming into, Western Queensland, as an example. Or unfortunately, there might be, a serious kind of terrorist attack going on, down in Melbourne at Burke Street, for example, where there could be a protest happening in Sydney, as an example. So we use these light touch notifications to give our members the advice and support and safety, on a regular basis. So then they actually feel that they're aligned with Sonder. Sonder's there to support them. And then over time, there might be a wellbeing notification. So for example, the month of February, we did a whole campaign around financial wellbeing. We know that is a massive issue for our for the country of Australia and New Zealand and across the world. Economic climate's having an impact on our members. So we pushed out a lot of content on that, little tips and tricks to help people in that particular area. And we saw a real massive uplift in engagement of people reading those resources, and our customers, pushing out kind of workshops in that area as well. So that type of kind of engagement shows that there is appetite for things outside of the traditional, let's say, mental health
Yeah.
support that people typically think about when you ask them about, employee well-being. So, we look at lots of different things that are related to the individual. Like this month, for example, we're really focusing on sleep. There's International Sleep Day later on this month. We know sleep's so important, and it's so interlinked to your own well-being. So we focus on things that are both medically related, but also financial, or their overall well-being, and how we can support them through that journey.
Yeah, it's critical because if you're not getting the right sleep or you're not doing the relevant exercise to really free up your brain, it is really hard to move through a challenging situation like this. And you've touched on it a few times. The financial landscape globally right now is providing, it's making it a lot harder for for individuals to keep and stay on top of their bills and their finances, and it's creating additional stress, and then obviously that impacts their health and their eating habits, and then it impacts their sleep habits, and then it's this full circle of the evolution of pain, and people are finding it difficult to break out of it. So if an organization, a forward thinking organization, wants to look at an organization like Sonder, and uh, the HR team are looking to implement some changes. If you're building a culture of well-being, it obviously requires buy-in from all levels. So, do you have any advice, or how can HR teams, I suppose, effectively champion and advocate for a software like Sonder to really help the organization move forward?
Yeah, and that's a question, we discuss on a regular basis within our teams here. But I think one of the things that, we talk to organizations about is around those kind of key business metrics that they're trying to impact. So when we talk to HR, it's like, have you considered how, the well-being of your staff is affecting your bottom line of your organization? And we know that, customer experience is so related to employee experience. So if your staff are performing at their peak, then they're naturally going to have a better performance to your customers coming through the door, or through the on the phone, and that's hopefully going to then drive sales for you as an organization. But then we also look at things like metrics like, what is the presenteeism like of your organization? What is, sick day, absenteeism, staff turnover? These are key metrics that we know as an organization that we can influence. And that's where, we can help organizations build out key business
Hmm.
cases based on these different metrics to show that how we can impact those organizations' bottom line ultimately. And I think that's where you can get buy-in from your CFO, your CEO, so they can actually take notice of, actually, if we were to go and implement Sonder, we can ultimately affect and reduce workers' comp claims. We can reduce the number of people sick days we're taking off. We can reduce our staff turnover, and that has a huge impact on the bottom line of their organization. And I think there's a big shift that we're trying to educate people in HR that we can have that impact, because with a traditional EAP, because EAPs traditionally have quite low utilization, there's very little data that they're getting
Yeah.
to actually understand what's happening. Whereas at Sonder, we're getting 20x utilization. So anything from 30 to 50% utilization. So the amount of anonymized data that we're gathering on a monthly basis that we can then share back to executives and show them what's going on with their organization is priceless. And
Yeah.
they can really get ahead of the curve to, stop situations turning into bigger situations.
Yeah, I mean, and you've touched on it a few times. It's really getting ahead of the curve. And if organizations can sit down and pinpoint, absenteeism, sick days, then for me, if someone's having a sick day, it would be a safe assumption that the days leading up to that sick day where they were, potentially not performing at their peak as well, because they've got things going through their head. They're trying to understand, they're trying to uncover. And then it comes to a point where they're like, no, I can't do this anymore. I need to have a day off because I'm burnt out. So not only not only is the actual sick day causing a problem for the organization, it's the potential lack of or loss of performance from that person leading up as well. So I think for organizations to get ahead of that curve and to really identify early how to work with their staff is pivotal. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to think also that there is the ripple effect as well. So if an individual isn't performing at their best, or they're taking time off, that then affects the other people in that team, because then they're going to have to pick up the workload. Then they get overworked, and the pressure comes, and then it also filters through to the manager themselves. Managers end up having to focus on things which aren't their day to day, and takes them away from their key business metrics, because they're having to deal with situations, whether it's dealing with somebody's well-being themselves. And these managers, unfortunately, they want to help, and there's a burden on them that they want to help, but they're not clinical psychologists or counselors.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time they end up trying to be, and that then takes them away from their normal business as usual role from that perspective. So when we partner with organizations, we know we can reduce the impact that managers are having to spend on dealing with well-being issues, because ultimately they trust the partnership they have with someone to help their employees and help their people.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. And I suppose what's next for Sonder? What are you looking to achieve with Sonder? And if anyone's looking, HR managers listening today, um, how can they reach out to you, and what would Sonder provide them moving forward?
I think, one thing that I'd like to say is that, we take a real strategic kind of uh, direction when it comes to supporting organizations, and certainly in HR. We're not here just to simply give people access to an app and leave them to their own devices. We work with them to understand what their real challenges are, where are the areas they want to support their people, whether it's, everyday medical support, whether it's the safety features, whether it's, mental health. But there's also other areas that we're working to support organizations, where if it's injury management, and we're obviously expanding through into the UK now. We cover ANZ as well at the moment. And, I think, we put a big focus on kind of our customer success side of the business as well. So once you do become a partner of Sonder, we hold your hands and take you through a journey to make sure that, we're driving continued activation and usage of the solution,
Yep.
because that's where we're quite different to a traditional EAP, where traditionally EAPs make their kind of money by offering more sessions and more counseling sessions, where we're offering a solution which can be proactive, and people can dip in and dip out on a regular basis, whether it could be listening to, a podcast, or it could be something to do with meditation. It could be an exercise class. It could be recipe, so we're doing a lot to kind of make sure that Sonder becomes almost a habitual habit, that,
Nice.
that it's an angel in your pocket, that
Yep.
you can get that support at any time. And I think that's the key thing, regardless of, if it's 2 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon, you can open the app, and within 10 seconds, you can be starting having a chat, instant message with our support center here in Sydney, or in Auckland, or in London. And, you're dealing with a clinician that can support you in the time of need, not
Yeah.
having to kind of to a call center and wait for an appointment 3 or 4 days later.
That's fantastic. It's really sort of on the front line, helping people deal with real world situations that they're living with in the current moment. And I suppose, on that, what have you noticed any other sort of emerging trends or developments, focusing in on the area of men's health and well-being, that, HR leaders should take note of, and really start to look and investigate further?
I think a really big thing, and I've had these conversations with a number of organizations recently around kind of, the psychosocial risk, which is, obviously with the legislation changes in the last 12 months, that's obviously, changed the landscape there massively. But what it all comes back to is about caring for your people. And I think, certainly with men in general, I think, it's important to, have those conversations with men across your workforce in your organizations, and just ask the question, are they struggling with certain things in their life, and how they would like to get help. And I think it's about having those conversations and trying to kind of break down the barrier, and not say, look, if you're struggling, there's a number on the fridge, give them a call, because 9 times out of 10, that bloke's not going to do that.
Yeah.
I used the analogy, we work for a vast array of organizations, and lots of kind of blue collar blokes who typically wouldn't traditionally ask for help. But because we break down those barriers of entry by giving them a tool where they can open it and they can start a chat message, it's a safe space for them. And they can, come through, and, we've got guys in their 50s who typically, wouldn't ask for help. They're coming through asking, about, I'm concerned about prostate cancer. I'm getting to that age. What should I do? And we're there to, our registered nurses can talk them through the process of, going and getting it tested. But then, because of that one little conversation on instant message, that bloke then opens up, because we ask him, is everything else okay? And he says, well, actually, I'm struggling a bit at work. I'm stressed. I've got a bit of, depression, and, it opens the door to, getting that support. Because we know that most people who come through to Sonder, it's not just one thing that is on their mind. We call them complex cases. There's 2 or 3 things going on. And we can really peel the layers of the onion away and support that individual, who then gets the help they need, instead of previously they would have just sat back and suffered in silence.
Yep.
So it's about just making sure that you talk to your frontline workers, talk to the men in your organization, and not just your frontline workers. Talk to your senior executives. These are men too. These are fathers. These are people who have high pressure jobs, and make sure that they're getting the support that they need.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. And you used the onion analogy before I got to it. It's you're a sales professional, one of the best I've ever met. But it's, when you're same as in sales, you always got to get to the root cause or the true problem, and then we're men. We're trained to surface smaller problems to brush off or defer conversation because it's an easier topic to have as opposed to diving into the deeper realms of mental health and how do we work towards that. So I'm just conscious of time. It's been absolutely delightful to chat with you, and I really appreciate you giving up so much of your time. For those that are looking to get involved with WNOW, do you have any sort of advice, or I'll add some links into this later on, but do you have any advice or how they can contact
Yeah,
you or the company?
best thing. Yeah, best thing with W&I is to, you can find us on Instagram. You can also find us online on our website. We'll put the details in this post here. Just reach out to us online. We can then obviously introduce you to the most relevant chapter within your region. And then we'll obviously welcome you with open arms to one of our sunrise catch-ups on Wednesday mornings at 6 a.m. And then in regards to Sonder, yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn and, be more than happy to have a conversation just to learn a little bit more about the challenges that, your organization may be facing when it's supporting, mental health across the organization, and just how we're doing things a little bit differently here at Sonder. And I certainly feel like having that conversation will, enlighten you to what we're doing to help people across ANZ and the UK.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Paddy, love your work, love what you're doing to support men's mental health and I suppose really bring awareness to, what is a topic that has impacted me for most of my adult life and, dealing with, and having, as I said, friends and close friends that are no longer with us that were just, the pain was too much to deal with. So it's great that I love what you're doing with W Now and what, Sonder is doing in the market and the growth plans. I'm cheering you on the sidelines, hoping that you all have a huge success and reach many people.
No, thank you, Adrian. I really appreciate the opportunity to share the journey that we're trying to do and ultimately impact those, million men around the world, and ultimately help the world be better with, healthier, better human beings.
Yeah, fantastic, Paddy. Thank you so much for your time. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Adrian. Appreciate it,
Thanks,
mate.
mate. Don't forget to follow Crux PRM on LinkedIn or cruxhq.com to register as a guest.